All right, we are going to get started. So just a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box, and we will get to each one of them at the end of the webinar. Also, as with all of our webinars, this one will be available to watch on our YouTube channel after it is completed downloading. So today we welcome Chip Houmes from Precision Laboratories. Chip has almost 40 years of experience in the agriculture chemical field, and he'll be leading us through a webinar on soil surfactants such as Vivax, Triplow, and Alypso Plus, among others from Tessman's new product line. So welcome, Chip.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. So welcome everybody. So today we're going to talk about, the title of the slide says water management tools, but basically we're going to be talking about soil surfactant chemistries, or what people call wetting agents, and describe the characteristics that they do and how they may function, and maybe how you could use them to improve your programs. At Precision, we recognize that water is a very critical resource. There's a lot of demand and alternative uses for water. It's interesting in doing some of the calculations. Golf courses use about 2 billion gallons of water a year, which is a lot. Now the nice thing is that our turf filtrates it and filters it up, and we actually basically recycle it. But that demand is critical, along with all the other demands that we have for water. So using soil surfactant chemistries, we can save and help you utilize your water better. One thing we recommend is doing an irrigation audit if you have the opportunity to do that, where you collect irrigation from each of the heads and assess that you're getting appropriate coverage and volume to the areas that you're trying to irrigate. But utilizing soil surfactant chemistries can help immensely. We have products that infiltrate, or infiltration surfactants. They basically push water in. And then we have products that hydrate or hold water that can help increase how long the water persists or how available it is to the plants. And so we'll get into more of that as we go on and through the presentation. As we look at surfactant chemistries, what we're trying to do is break the surface tension of the water. Water by nature wants to form a droplet or bead up, and a surfactant is going to break that surface tension, help it to spread out, and so you're going to have more uniform flow into the soil and then throughout it, both vertically and horizontally. When we look at the anatomy of a surfactant, it has a lipophilic or water repellent tail that's organic, and then it has a hydrophil or hydrophilic head that is actually attracted to water, and those molecules can both break surface tension as well as increase water holding capacity or bring back your volumetric water content. So water would have a surface film, and water, again, as I said, water is attracted to itself, so it tends to bind together and form those droplets. When we add surfactant to that, the surfactants break those bonds, and now you're dealing with individual molecules of water instead of dealing with droplets or larger molecular bonds. And then when we look at water, it wants to follow preferential flow. It wants to follow the path of least resistance. This is not very good uniform placement of moisture. It's followed cracks and crevices or possibly aerification channels. And so this isn't good uniform placement of water. Your inputs aren't going to be utilized as well, nor are your roots going to be uniform and the plants growing equally. We also deal with different soil types and different issues. When we look at sand, typically we're dealing with larger macropores. When we're looking at clay soils or our native soils, a lot of times we're dealing with the small micropores. There's still a lot of pore space, but because they're smaller, it's much harder to get that droplet of water to go into it unless you break that surface tension. There's also other barriers. We have to get it through the canopy. If you've got a thatch layer, get it through that thatch. Then we look at your soil types again, but then also organic matter content, any potential layering, if there'd been start-stops to aerification and top dressing plans, and then compaction through traffic or what have you. And then additionally, we look at slopes, and the water wants to run off the high spots into the low spots. So trying to get and address each of those barriers. Here's an example. The picture of my cell probe on the left shows a green that had never been top dressed. They aerified, but they said they didn't have it in their budget to top dress. After growing grass on it for over 30 years, they developed 3 or 4 inches of thatch that they were growing all their roots into. And they had a lot of disease pressure. And then if you notice towards the middle of that profile, there's a black layer. And yet with the use of a good surfactant, we were able to get through all that thatch, through the black layer, and still have roots down into the sand. So surfactants can help you overcome a lot of barriers. Hopefully none of you are experiencing anything quite this significant, but just wanted to show it as an extreme case. When we look at this is a bench test that we did with soil surfactants. I'm going to play this video. I think it's, so you got a video within a video if you're watching this from a video perspective. I'll let this go for just a little bit.
Say, Chip, I just want to let you know that the audio is not coming across on the video. So while I think that these are really amazing visuals,
oh my goodness.
I just wanted you to
Thank you
know
for letting me know.
Sure.
I could do a voiceover, so I apologize for that. I thought the video might come across. So what we're seeing in the first part was he has one of the beakers has just water and dye. The other one has water, dye, and surfactant. This is the one with just water and dye. So you can see that it's not absorbing or infiltrating into that, and it's not hydrating up into the soil. So here we're going against gravity even. In the first slides, I think it was pretty dramatic on how it impacted the thatch. So thank you for bringing it to my attention that the audio wasn't working on that. But these were just soil cores taken out of a golf course up in southern Wisconsin. We let them air dry. And so for those of you that have managed, so in 2 hours, it actually absorbed all the water in the treated one. So again, I apologize for the audio part of that, but so what's really interesting to me with that video that we just watched is the ability. If you've chased water across greens before, or if you're a sports turf manager and have areas that just won't take water, your percolation rate's lower, and even in if you're dealing with landscape beds and mulch beds or container grown nursery materials, all of those areas have a lot of organic that repel water. And so what we're trying to demonstrate with that video was getting water to move. As we look closer then, this is a picture where a guy left a check strip on a sloping area. He had used our Duplex product, which is basically a straight infiltration product at a quart per acre. And what's interesting, by leaving that check strip, you can see the moisture stress that the turf is going under. But there's a lot more things going on. In that picture, obviously it's critical for plant health and color, but it's also critical for your soils. Your microbial activity that you've tried to stimulate in the soil, if it dries out, that microbial activity is going to deteriorate and probably a lot of the microbes will die. And also you've put a lot of money into your herbicides, fungicides, soil insecticides, nutrients, and none of those are going to be available to the plant. You have to have a soil solution for those to be functioning and get the benefits out of them. This is another golf course over in Indiana who had used Duplex and intentionally left a check strip, and he marked it off. He wanted to show his owner what this technology was able to do for him. Duplex, again, being a penetrant, this is a lower line river bottom course. And so the only difference is treated on either side, and that strip down the middle of the picture on the left, or that he went out and drew yellow lines on either side of it, just to show the difference that the soil surfactant made. What was most interesting was he took a probe and took a probe out, soil probe, on the untreated, and then 12 inches away took a probe out of the treated. The untreated, as you might imagine, he couldn't get the probe into the ground very well. It was very compacted and very tight. The moisture was all on the top inch. In the treated, just 12 inches away, the probe slid right in the ground and moisture was down 6 inches, 7 inches deep. So he was much better off that way and was able to show his owner what it could do. That was our product Duplex, which has been on the market for several years. We launched a couple years ago a new penetrant called Ellipso and Alypso Plus. Ellipso Plus, as Duplex, both have acids in them, which is kind of unique in the soil penetrant chemistries. A lot of people just sell straight soil penetrants. Our Duplex and our Ellipso Plus both have acids in it that will help with the pH of your spray tank when you're spraying. So when you're in a tank mix, it's going to help you with buffering your tank, and the surfactant will give you better spray coverage. So it's definitely a sprayable benefit. But then once it hits the soil, it's also going to help with some of the bicarbonates in the soil, or if you inject it through irrigation, it could help you deal with bicarbonates in the irrigation water. And then of course the penetrant's going to help soak water more uniformly in. So Ellipso Plus is our next generation of soil surfactant chemistries. We compared ourselves to our competitors. Here you see the Ellipso on the far left in the blue, compared to the other products that are in this category of being soil penetrants. And Ellipso Plus is just moving water in so much quicker and better and deeper. It's basically the newest, latest in that chemical family. So it's a next generation soil infiltration. It improves water movement into the soil, both horizontally and vertically, for more uniformity. And you can spray it or inject it through your irrigation, or spray it through your normal sprayer, and mix with pretty much any tank mix partner. So using it as a wash-in, one of the things people don't think about, when you're putting out your pre-emergent herbicides or your soil insecticides or even a soil active fungicide, when that gets rain on it or irrigation water, it's not going to move in very uniformly. It's going to follow that preferential flow like I showed earlier, and so you're not going to have the uniform placement. The picture at the bottom of this slide shows that on the left side, water's following channels of least resistance. On the right side, with the soil surfactant added to it, now you're having a much more uniform barrier to get the most performance out of your pesticide. So when we're breaking up our categories of wetting agents or soil surfactants, we break them into hydration materials and infiltration materials. And then the overlap in the middle is products that do both. So looking at our product line, we have Magnus, which is a straight holder. It's great for seed germination and grow in. It's great for possibly sod or for hydro seeding or some of those types of functions. Or if you just got a soil that just can't hold enough water. Sometimes people will treat drain lines that pop out on them or something if they've backfilled with sand and can't keep enough water, or a sand-capped tee box or something. But typically on greens, Magnus doesn't allow the surface to firm up by itself. Then we get into the infiltration chemistries, and we have Ellipso, Alypso Plus, Duplex, Duplex Ultra. Those products are straight penetrants. The Duplex, Duplex Ultra, and Alypso Plus also have acid in them. But those products are going to just push water in, and you're going to have a firmer playing surface. It's going to have much more uniformity. It's also the lower cost aspect. If you're looking to spray fairways or large acreages with a soil surfactant, Ellipso and Duplex are great starting points, as they run somewhere between $8 to $18 an acre per month. And then we look at that overlap, and that's where we really see the products that we get the most benefit out of, products that both move water off the surface. So you have a firm playing surface, whether it's a putting green or a sports turf facility or even other areas that it is important to have a firm surface. The infiltration aspect pushes water in, but yet the hydration part of it, of the chemistries, would help to keep water, bring back your volumetric water content or your water holding capacity of the soil. And in the middle there, then you see our Magna, Plex, and Cascade, which we've had on the market for several years. And then again, newer chemistries we brought out in the last couple years, Vivax and Triplow. And I'll go into more detail on several of these. So as we look, we talked about infiltration. We talked about getting into tight soils and getting water to soak in deeper. But then we talk about hydrophobicity and localized dry spot, LDS, water repellent soils. They lead to poor plant health, inconsistent playing conditions, and you're just trying to overcome and get that water to, one, soak into that hydrophobic spot, but a straight infiltration product isn't going to help bring back your holding capacity to that water repellent soil. So we want to use something that has some holding capacity to it. Causes of LDS or localized dry spots. Here's a sand particle on the left that's got that white flaky coating, and that's organic acids that have attached to the sand. And that particle is now water repellent. Water can't attach to it like it could on the right, where you have a clean, healthy sand particle. And these are out of the same greens down in Georgia. So what we want to do is try to address that organic coating that's on there. There's no product that actually removes it off the soil. Our good soil surfactants, our Cascade, our Vivax, really pretty much any of our soil surfactants are going to help push free organic acids down and deeper into the profile. But once they've attached to the soil, there's nothing that truly removes it or strips it. Here's another video. There's no voiceover on this one, so I'm just going to voice it along. But here's soil. Put a drop of water there.
See, Chip, your audio is breaking up a little bit, Chip. I'm wondering if
can you hear me now?
No, it's still breaking up a little bit.
It's not my because I've not done it. Let me know if that so that showed that in that video it was showing the water droplet just sitting there, and then the water droplet soaking in more uniformly when we addressed it and added just a little bit of Vivax in a spray solution that you might spray. So in a surfactant, like I said, it has a lipophilic tail and a hydrophilic head. The hydrophilic head likes water. So when we spray that and apply it and wash it into the soil, it's going to attach to the soil particles, whether they're just a standard soil particle or whether it's hydrophobic or not. But it's going to increase the volumetric water content and the water holding capacity. Basically, we're trying to bring back the soil to what its natural characteristics would be. And so you can imagine if you attach that to a bunch of different particles, it's going to give you a much more uniform placement of water. As an example of overcoming localized dry spot, here's our product Cascade that's been on the market for several years. We recommended it at 8 ounces plus 8 ounces split applied. the thing is, when we look at timing of those 8-ounce applications, and this is common sense, but in the back you see a control. On the right corner there, you see applied on May 9th and May 16th. So they were only applied about a week apart from each other. And by August, that was running out of gas. But we take the same rates of 8 ounces plus 8 ounces and apply it on May 9th and July 9th, and we get much more consistent performance. So you could make 2 applications in a season, up especially in the Minnesota and the Dakotas and northern Wisconsin. Possibly those 2 applications could carry you all summer if you don't want to make more applications. Well, one of the things we found over the years is people like to be more in control of their water. And so people were looking at, let me back up. This is talking about irrigation efficiencies. With Cascade, we did a study. You can increase irrigation efficiencies. In this case, they were trying to get to 15% volumetric water content. It took 1 irrigation cycle in the treated versus 3 irrigation cycles in the untreated to get to 15% volumetric water. And that had to do with the fact that Cascade had both infiltration and hydration characteristics. But as I started to say about rates, so the 8 ounces is going to last 60, maybe as long as 90 days. But we get into people that wanted more control. And so we started recommending 4 ounces of Cascade. But what we found was the 4-ounce rate wasn't working as deep as the 8-ounce rate just because of the volume of product. So we mixed an ounce of our penetrant Duplex with it. And so that 4+1 became widely accepted. At one point, we were on about 70% of the tour stops for the USGA and PGA. Here, there's a picture of a fairway. It's a sand cap, Bowling Green, Kentucky. You can see the moisture stress that was apparent there at the end of June. His guys were having to hand water all day long. And we went down, consulted with him. He tried an application of the Cascade Duplex 4-in-1. And the superintendent then sent me this picture of the same fairway. I apologize, the angle's not the same. I watched that closely. But this was a picture he sent me showing recovery 30 days after treatment. Similar story here at Benton Harbor, at Harbor Shores Golf Course. They have sandcap fairways up in Michigan, and they were in a year that their budgets were kind of cut. They weren't able to go out on a preventative basis, and they had some pretty good dry spots showing up in their fairways. They came out with our product Magna Plex and rescued over the top, and the superintendent sent me these 2 pictures, which I really like because the same bunker in the background showing recovery 30 days after application. Ideally, we don't want to let it go like that. We'd rather have it in a preventative program, start a program in say mid-May, and carry it through the summer, at least through Labor Day or depending on what the weather conditions are doing. So I would much prefer a preventative program, because with a preventative program, when you put the plant under stress like this he was experiencing in June, the roots have died back here, and now we're just going to try to limp along through Labor Day. I'd much rather keep the roots that we're growing on these cool season grasses going, because we're growing cool season grass roots in the spring and the fall, not in the summer. We're just trying to maintain it through the summer. So our new chemistry, though, so we talked about Cascade and Magnaplex. Our new chemistry, Vivax, it has actually 4 active ingredients, 2 infiltration, 2 hydration surfactants. This was at a research plot at Purdue University. Vivax really stood out in the plot, and the data showed that. This was the data from that showing localized dry spot, or LDS, in the red on the untreated versus the Vivax really helping to address the stress that the plants were under with LDS. In a wet year, when it's raining all summer, we were still performing better. And then in August, when it dried out, look at how the localized dry spots took off versus the Vivax maintained it and kept it very healthy. One of the questions we get on Vivax is, does it have to be watered in right away? And the answer is no. And nor does it have to be watered all at once. So we did a study in Utah where we were showing Vivax watered in immediately versus a delay of irrigation by 8 hours, and we still got the efficacy. We've also had guys put it in tank mixes where maybe it was something that they wanted to knock off the leaf, but they could only run a turn or 2 of their heads, and then they waited that night and watered it the rest of the way in, and that's fine. One of the critical things, though, is we still want to get 2/10 to a 1/4 inch of water to move these products in so that they perform in the soil profile. And we want that 2/10 to a 1/4 inch to be done within the first 24 hours of application. if you put it out on a Monday morning, we want it watered Monday night, sometime during the night before Tuesday morning. And you'll, whether you do it all at once or you split up the irrigation cycles, that's going to help you, because after about 24 hours, it locks in where it's going to be. This is a testimonial we have from Fort Wayne, Indiana at Sycamore Hills. They do a web tour event there. And the PGA official said it was a game changer after 9 inches of rain. They had 4 inches on Friday, 5 inches on Saturday, and noon Monday I took this picture, but they were very firm following 9 inches of rain over the weekend. The moisture content only varied by 0.5% across their greens, so they had very good uniformity. What was really interesting to me was they had 2 TDRs, or moisture meters, and one of the moisture meters had 1.5 inches, the other one had 3-inch prongs on it. The 1.5-inch prongs were measuring only 12% moisture, while the 3-inch prongs were measuring 18% moisture. And so what we were doing exactly what we said. The surface was firm, but yet they had nice uniform volumetric water content in the roots. And the superintendent was extremely pleased. He's been on this product for over 4 years now. One of the interesting side effects that we get from Vivax is we see dew suppression. A lot of times when people put out wetting agents or soil surfactants, we see dew suppression for a few days, maybe 2 or 3. With Vivax, we're seeing dew suppression for 4 or 5, maybe up to 7 days, which can be a big benefit, especially on top dressing and not picking up sand on your rollers and such. Again, we've overcome some pretty significant challenges with this product. So if you're worried about your greens not having uniformity, or maybe you've done reconstruction on some of your greens, and so you have 9 that were built 30 years ago and 9 that were renovated 10 years ago, Vivax has been one of the most uniform working products. In this case, we had one of my friends had a green that he inherited, and he called me up and said, "What can I do about this?" But he's got 2 or 3 inches of thatch on top of about 6 inches of beautiful new sand when they renovated, and then that's perched on top of 6 inches of the old sand that was there. And I was concerned about the thatch. I wanted to get it to go down through there. So rather than just doing straight Vivax, I mixed Vivax at 4 ounces with 1 ounce of Alypso Plus, and that helped get it through the thatch, and he was very happy. But because of the thatch and the pressure of trying to get water to move through, I also had him come in 2 weeks later with an application of just the Ellipso Plus to keep water going. And at that 3/4 ounce rate of Ellipso Plus, he was extremely happy and able to manage those greens for the last couple years on this program, as compared to previously, he was just limping by and was almost losing his greens. So we can do some really neat things, but it doesn't have to be that dramatic. I might recommend this same program if somebody was on push-up greens and have maybe a more shallow sand mix from their aerification and top dressing of 2 or 3 inches, and then they've got a heavy clay underneath it. This Vivax 4-in-1 has worked very well in those settings, or as well as times when we're getting a lot of rain and it's really important to move water. And the best part of it is, since Vivax has 4 ingredients, one of those ingredients is plus, so we're not using different chemistries. We're just changing the ratios of chemistry available. Long term, the superintendent's going to do a dry jack to solve his problems. Obviously, we're a tool that you can use to try to help get through situations, but he was evaluating drill and fill, dry jack, and aerification, and the dry jack seems to be doing a nice job, so he's doing that aggressively now. When we talk about trying to manage water and improve irrigation efficiencies, here was a picture from Cape Cod. In 2015, they had a drought. They went into a situation where they couldn't water. They couldn't run any irrigation at all. But just ahead of that, they went out with an application of Vivax. So you can see that under a drought condition, it's helping to maintain a color and quality. So he went out and just sprayed his green complex, but you can see exactly where his sprayer ran. This is a video showing penetration of this Vivax tablet. Again, I'll do the voice over here. But so Vivax in a hose and applicator, it's the tablet form of it. But what I really get excited about is watching the surface tension reduction and how it just breaks that surface tension and gets in. And again, if you chase water around on hydrophobic spots or water repellent spots, you know what it's like. It just beats up and sits there and it doesn't ever soak in. And just watching the surface tension break and getting that water to start uniformly into the soil. So Vivax is available as a liquid. It's also available in a granular. and it's available as a tablet form for hose end apps. Now, the tablet is only designed to work for 4 or 5 days. You're not getting a full dose. The granular and the liquid, you can apply at full dosages, which can give you a month's residual if you want. We have some people breaking it in and doing it every 2 weeks. So it's a very flexible product. We also offer it on a 0020 fertilizer, which might be of interest to some people, which is another option. As we get into Triplow, Triplow is another one of our newer chemistries. Where Vivax contained 4 ingredients, Triplow only contains 3. It has 2 infiltration, only 1 hydration. So it's kind of an in-between product between what Vivax is from a hydration perspective to what, say, straight Alypso Plus might be as a straight infiltration product. This one is more infiltration and less hydration, but it does give you some hydration to help dry periods, or if you've got some slopes that need to have a little bit more moisture holding capacity. This was at Purdue University. I did a soil probe in the treated area. We measured 14% moisture. In the untreated, in that check, just to the top of those orange dots in the margin between applications, I measured the moisture content was only 4.6%. So even though it's not strong in water holding, in this case, we were getting water to soak into those spots and address it a little bit. So it does increase the volumetric water content. Great rescue material. Triplow, again, here's looking at it at the university research. If you look back and think about what I showed on Vivax, Vivax is going to solve LDS better, but Triplow does a pretty good job. So depending on what you're wanting, I have a lot of guys on push-up greens that will use Triplow, a lot of soccer complexes where they have tight, heavy soils and they just can't get water to soak in. Triplow has been a great product for them as well. As I said, it subtly increases volumetric water content, so it's not going to be dramatic and is a good in-between product. Again, Triplow does not have to be watered in right away. We did the same irrigation study, whether it was watered in immediately or delayed by 8 hours, or you could spin the heads, water it a little bit, and then water it the rest of the way that night. From a testimonial perspective, the golf club, which is a suburb of Columbus, Keith Grishina is the superintendent there, and he's been on Triplow for about 5 years. He uses 5 ounces per 1,000 on a monthly basis, and the comments he got from his members was their fairways have never been firmer. They're getting better ball roll, but yet they're able to keep moisture and have an uniformity, color, and playability. As I mentioned earlier, there are uses for these soil surfactant chemistries. So if you're in home lawns or even if you're seeding, doing interseeding on sports fields or golf courses, helping to keep some moisture there for germination of seeds, as well as establishment of sod. I love on sod to throw a granular, whether it's granular Cascade, granular Vivax, or maybe one of the 0020 Vivax or Cascade. We also do it on a Milorganite. If people like organics, we do a 310 Cascade on Milorganite. Those can be put on top of the sod and help it tag down, help it establish, and quite honestly, most people don't water sod enough to help it keep alive and get it established. And so you can double the effectiveness of what water gets out there. And then we also have people using products like our Magnus or Magna Plex or some Vivax through I've gone a little over. I wanted to mention sports turf. I'm going to go through this very quickly. I've got a video I may skip. It's on YouTube, but let's go through this from a time perspective. I want to introduce you to what we're doing with sports turf. We want to provide the best playing conditions and the best fields, but we still deal with a lot of areas that wetting agents or soil surfactant can help you with. When you're trying to reseed soccer goal mouse, it's a great place if you're throwing seed to throw some granular Vivax, or we also have a new product called Inflow I'm going to go into. And it's going to help with irrigation efficiencies. If you don't have access or it's hard for you to irrigate, if you could increase your irrigation by 30 to 60%, we've had data that confirms that you're going to have more irrigation efficiencies. Here's a soccer field in Lake Forest University. The manager sent me these pictures, but on July 27th, he was experiencing uneven water movement into his soils on his field. He applied our Ellipso Plus at 1 ounce per 1,000, and then followed it with pictures 2 weeks later and then 3 weeks later. And you can see the effectiveness that just in a couple weeks, we were able to turn that field around and really provide a better playing condition, more uniformity, and not have the drought stress going on. This was a baseball field up in Wisconsin at Parkside, University of Wisconsin Parkside. It was during the summer, so they weren't irrigating their baseball field. I treated there between the yellow flags just to strip that wide, and you can see a subtle color difference. And then I hand watered it in, and then I watered a spot on the end of it. But what we're showing here is the treated area had much less compaction. So when we're talking about athletic field, one of the concerns on soccer and I suppose football, but baseball would be potential injuries or concussions, knee injuries, and those type of things. If we can reduce that compaction and make it a safer playing surface. The new product that we have in the sports turf realm is called Inflow. It's labeled for all sports turf, so it's a granular. You can put it out. It's targeted at first here on baseball infields. It's the only product that I'm aware of that's really labeled and targeted at baseball infield skins, helping to get water off the surface and make the infield more playable. It's a granule, and it can be spread also on the fields, on the outfield. It could be on your soccer fields, football fields. I've even had some people talking about using it now in bunkers to help bunkers drain better on golf courses. The Red Sox at farm team for Boston said it was everything they were looking for in infield water management, that they get cleats in, cleats out. And what that means when they place their foot down, that it leaves a clean print. All that you see is where the cleat hit. You're not leaving an indentation where it's too wet, or it's not filling right back in where it might be too dry. It gives a nice clean cleats in, cleats out effect. I went to visit this field. This is at Stevenson High School in Illinois, and I was going out to see them at 1 o'clock. I was grabbing a lunch at noon. The sky opened up and it rained 1.25 inches. And so an hour later, I was out on his field, and he does good management practices, but this is his varsity baseball field at Stevenson High School. And Randy, we walked out there, and you could just barely see any footprinting that I had, even just 1 hour after 1.25 inches rain. Right next to this field, just on the other side of the fence, is his varsity softball field. So I went over and looked at it. It was not treated. So this field was treated with Inflow. This field was not, right next to it. And they had standing water, and when I started to walk out there, we left some really significant footprints. So he attributed that this field, treated with Inflow, was taking the water much better. This is a video. It's a few minutes long. I've gone over. I would, I guess, challenge you, and since the voiceover is not working, I think it's important that you hear Randy's words. I'm going to let you just Google Precision Lab, Stevenson High School, or Inflow, and that's going to pop up a YouTube video that's about a 3-minute video that gives you Randy's words on this. So again, I'm going to skip this because you're not hearing what he has to say. What I will say is he was able to make up 6 games that would have been postponed or rained out, that their coach called and said, well, we have an away game tonight, and their team called and they said their field's too wet. Can we play it at home instead? And Randy said, yeah, give me an hour or two and I'll have it ready. Because he had Inflow out there, he attributed it to helping move water and helping him maintain playability despite other neighboring fields were unable to be played on. And now is the time. We're in early April. Now would be a great time to start on a program. I realize with some of the things going on, maybe the spring season's been screwed up, but if you're managing fields in the summer or going into next fall, would challenge you to take a look at this. Inflow, the use rate is 5 pounds per 1,000. They come in 50-pound bags. As a granular, you just spread it out through your spreader. Usually a baseball field is about 10,000 square feet, so 1 bag on baseball fields. Softball fields, because they don't have any turf on the infield, takes about 2 bags or 20,000 square feet. So in summary, as we started out, we wanted to make every droplet count. And I wanted to explain to you some of our technologies that we're using, both for infiltration and hydration, trying to help you have the best playing conditions or even the best visual quality I talked a lot about sports turf and golf, but we have a lot of ornamental uses as well, whether that's using a granular or a drench of the liquid in hanging baskets, treating container-grown nursery stock or even nurseries, trying to get water to soak better into root balls on transplanted trees, or even doing root injection feeding, putting our Ellipso or Alypso Plus in with that to help more uniformity and uptake of plants. So there's a lot of turf usages, and there's a lot of ornamental usages, and helping it get through the mulch. Once it hardens off, it becomes water repellent. So hopefully I've stirred up some thoughts, maybe some questions. I didn't see any questions pop up on us as we were giving this talk, but thank you for listening. My email here is Houmes at precisionlab.com, and my cell phone number is 217-260-6943. Be more than happy to take any questions or comments, or obviously you can contact your Testman representative and we can get your questions answered, and look forward to doing business with you down the road. Thank you for your participation today.
Thanks, Chip. I do not see any open questions right now, so we'll give just a couple of seconds and see if anybody puts anything in. At this point, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us for today's webinar, including Chip. And also just to remind everyone that we do have an additional webinar coming up at noon. So if you haven't registered for that one yet, please go to our website and do so on our webinars page and our events page. So thank you very much. Thank you so much, Chip, for this wonderful presentation. And we'll see you in just a few minutes on our next webinar.
Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it.